The nature of motivation. Motivation is often the spark that ignites our journey. It's the excitement you feel when you first set a new goal, the burst of energy that pushes you to start a project, or the enthusiasm that makes you wake up early with a clear vision in your heart. Motivation feels powerful because it lights a fire within us. But here's the truth. Motivation is not permanent. It's not something you can rely on every single day because it is deeply tied to your emotions, your energy levels, and your external circumstances. Think about it. Have you ever felt unstoppable one day, only to wake up the next morning with no drive at all? That's motivation. It comes in waves, it rises and falls, and if your entire growth depends only on motivation, you'll find yourself constantly stuck in a cycle of starting strong, but never finishing. This is why so many people abandon their dreams after the initial excitement fades. They thought motivation would be enough. But spiritual awakening begins when you recognize that motivation was never meant to be your foundation. It is not the house. It is only the spark that helps you build the first brick. The problem is not that motivation disappears. The problem is that we expect it to stay forever. Motivation is like the wind. It can push your sails forward. But if you do not learn to steer, the moment the wind stops, your ship will drift aimlessly. Life will not always feel inspiring. There will be days when you feel tired, when your mind tells you to give up, when your emotions scream that it's not worth it. In those moments, if you depend only on motivation, you will stop moving. But if you understand that motivation is just one part of the journey, you begin to awaken to something greater. True progress is not about chasing constant motivation. It is about learning to act without it. When motivation is present, you use it as fuel. When it is absent, you rely on deeper forces, discipline, commitment, and faith. That's where growth happens. Because the real transformation does not occur when you are excited and energetic. It occurs when you keep going despite the lack of excitement. So, when you ask yourself, what do I do when my motivation runs out? Remember this truth. Motivation was never supposed to carry you to the finish line. It was only meant to get you started. The journey belongs to your habits, your mindset, and your belief in something bigger than yourself. Motivation is the doorway, but you must choose to walk through it. And once you walk through, you must decide to keep walking, step by step, even when the fire inside feels dim. That is the nature of motivation. It is temporary, but your purpose is eternal. And when you understand this, you stop depending on fleeting feelings and begin to build a life rooted in strength, consistency, and inner awakening. The power of discipline. When motivation fades, most people stop. They pause their journey, they wait for the spark to return, and they convince themselves that until they feel motivated again, they cannot move forward. But this is where true growth separates from temporary excitement. Because when motivation leaves, discipline steps in. Discipline is not about how you feel in the moment. It is about the choice you make despite your feelings. Think of discipline as the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without that bridge, you stay stuck on one side, always dreaming but never reaching. Motivation might get you onto the bridge, but discipline is what helps you cross it. And the crossing is not always easy. Some days it feels heavy. Some days it feels lonely. But every step you take across that bridge is progress. And progress is the language of transformation. Spiritual awakening teaches us that discipline is not punishment. It is devotion. It is the highest form of self-love because it says, I will do what is necessary even if I don't feel like it because I know my soul deserves this growth. Discipline is the practice of showing up, not because the world is cheering for you, but because you promised yourself you would. It is keeping your word to yourself, and there is nothing more powerful than that. When you build discipline, you create consistency, and consistency builds momentum. Over time, momentum becomes energy, and energy brings results. That is when people around you begin to wonder how you kept going when everyone else stopped. But you know the truth. You weren't depending on motivation. You were guided by discipline. Discipline is spiritual, because it transforms your identity. Every time you act with discipline, you tell your subconscious mind, this is who I am. And slowly, your actions shape your reality. If you wake up early to pray, meditate, exercise, or work on your dream, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who values growth. If you keep showing up for your goals even when you feel tired, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your moods. This is why discipline feels hard at first, but over time it becomes natural. It turns into habit. And when it becomes habit, you no longer need to argue with yourself. You just do it. Imagine brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to do that. It's automatic because it's wired into your life. That's what discipline can do for your spiritual journey and your personal growth. It makes the difficult things feel natural, and it frees you from the endless cycle of waiting for motivation. So the next time you feel drained, the next time you feel unmotivated, remember this. You do not need to feel inspired to take action. You only need to decide. And once you decide, discipline will carry you further than motivation ever could. Because motivation is a spark, but discipline is the flame that keeps burning, even through the darkest nights. Faith in the process. When motivation runs out and discipline feels heavy, there is still one more force that carries you forward. Faith. Faith is not just a religious word, it is a spiritual principle that applies to every part of life. Faith is the belief that what you are doing today, even if it looks small and invisible, is creating a future you cannot yet see. It is the inner trust that your efforts are never wasted, even if results are delayed. Think about a seed planted in the soil. For weeks, you see nothing. You water it, you give it sunlight, and still, the ground looks the same. Many people quit here because they think their effort has no effect. But faith reminds you that growth is happening beneath the surface, where your eyes cannot reach. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, life is preparing to rise, and one day, without warning, the first sprout appears. That is how life works. That is how your journey works. Faith is what allows you to keep watering your dreams even when nothing seems to change. It gives you the courage to keep moving when your results are invisible. Without faith, you will abandon the seed before it blooms. With faith, you stay patient, you stay consistent, and eventually you witness the miracle of growth. Life will test you with silence. There will be seasons where you work hard and see no progress. Seasons where your energy feels wasted. Seasons where your heart feels discouraged. In these times, your mind will whisper, stop, give up, it's not working. But faith answers, keep going, something is happening, even if you cannot see it yet. Faith is the voice that refuses to quit when everything outside of you screams otherwise. Faith is also about surrender, surrendering the need to control every outcome. You do your part, but you also trust that the universe, God, or life itself is guiding the rest. Faith does not mean sitting back and waiting. It means working while trusting. It is action combined with surrender, effort combined with patience. This balance creates peace because you no longer live in desperation for instant results. And here is the beauty. When you live with faith, setbacks lose their power. A failure becomes feedback. A delay becomes preparation. A closed door becomes redirection. Faith gives you spiritual eyes to see meaning even in the struggle. And when you can see meaning, you no longer quit, you grow. So when motivation runs out and discipline feels heavy, lean on faith. Believe that every step you take matters. Believe that unseen progress is still progress. Believe that the seeds you are planting today will bloom tomorrow. Because life always rewards persistence. The question is not if, but when. And faith gives you the patience to wait for that when, while still moving forward with hope. Faith is the anchor that keeps your soul steady. It reminds you that your journey is sacred, your effort is valuable, and your story is still unfolding. Trust the process, because the process is shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. Awakening beyond motivation. There comes a moment on every journey when you realize that motivation is not the master, it is only the messenger. Motivation might open the door, But if you wait for it every day, you will remain stuck on the threshold of your own potential. Awakening begins when you understand that you don't need motivation to act. You can act without it. And when you reach this level of living, you become unstoppable. Most people live as prisoners of their emotions. If they feel excited, they act. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel inspired, they chase their dreams. If they feel discouraged, they put everything aside. Their entire life becomes a cycle of highs and lows, progress and pause, excitement and regret. But those who awaken spiritually discover a higher way of living. They act not because they feel like it, but because it is aligned with their purpose. When you live beyond motivation, your actions come from your values, not your moods. You wake up and pursue your goals because they reflect who you are becoming, not because you feel an emotional spark. You meditate, you pray, you work, you create, not because every day feels magical, but because you have chosen to honor the journey itself. That is true freedom, no longer being controlled by temporary feelings, but being guided by eternal purpose. This is why people who achieve greatness, whether in spirituality, art, business, or personal growth, often say, it wasn't about motivation. It was about consistency, belief, and purpose. They did not wait for the perfect mood. They created their own energy by showing up, day after day, regardless of how they felt. And in doing so, they built habits that carried them further than motivation ever could. Awakening beyond motivation also means you stop chasing quick results. You realize that life is not a sprint, but a marathon. You learn to love the process, to embrace the struggles, to see beauty even in the discipline. You no longer ask, how long will this take? Instead, you ask, who am I becoming in this journey? Because you understand that the real reward is not just the achievement, it is the transformation of your soul along the way. When you free yourself from the need to feel motivated all the time, you access a deeper strength. You can walk through fear without waiting for courage. You can keep going through doubt without waiting for certainty. You can rise above laziness without waiting for inspiration. Because you no longer need an emotional push, you have awakened to the power of choice. So the final awakening is this. Motivation is a gift, but it is not your guide. Your guide is discipline. Your fuel is faith, and your compass is purpose. When you combine these, you no longer live in cycles of starting and stopping. You live in steady, powerful progress, and that is when your life changes forever. Awaken beyond motivation. Act not because you feel like it, but because your soul knows it is time. That is where true strength, freedom, and transformation live. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to pause and reflect on everything we've uncovered. We began by exploring the nature of motivation, that spark which excites us, lifts us, and pushes us forward, but also fades when life becomes heavy. We discovered that motivation, while powerful, is never meant to be our foundation. It is a visitor, not a permanent resident in our lives. And if we depend solely on it, we will always be waiting, always pausing, always starting over. But then we look deeper into the force that carries us further. Discipline. Discipline is not about how we feel. It's about who we choose to become. It is the daily decision to show up, not because we're excited, but because we are committed. It's the devotion of honoring our own word, of creating habits so strong that even when the fire of motivation dies down, the engine of consistency keeps running. This is the practice that shapes character, molds resilience, and ultimately transforms ordinary people into extraordinary souls. Yet, discipline alone can sometimes feel heavy. And that's where faith in the process comes in. Faith reminds us that even when we cannot see results, progress is happening beneath the surface. Just like a seed growing roots before it blooms, your efforts are never wasted. Faith is the quiet confidence that your path has meaning, that every small action is creating a ripple, and that what feels invisible today will one day be visible to all. It is the strength that steadies you when results are slow, when setbacks appear, and when your heart grows weary. Faith whispers, keep going, your time is coming. Finally, we reached the ultimate truth, awakening beyond motivation. The highest level of growth is when you no longer act because you feel like it. You act because it is aligned with your purpose. You act because it reflects your values. You act because you understand that the journey itself is sacred. This is freedom. This is power. To live beyond the roller coaster of emotions, to rise above moods, and to keep walking with strength, even in silence and uncertainty. That is awakening. So what do you do when motivation runs out? You remember this. You are not dependent on a fleeting feeling. You have something greater inside you. You have discipline to carry you forward, faith to sustain you, and purpose to guide you. Together, these are stronger than any burst of inspiration. They make you steady, they make you resilient, and they make you unstoppable. Your life is not built in moments of excitement. It is built in the quiet consistency of showing up again and again. And every time you rise without motivation, you prove to yourself that you are not here just to chase feelings. You are here to grow, to rise, to awaken, and to fulfill the higher calling of your soul. So step forward. Don't wait for motivation. Create your own energy, live beyond the spark, and build the fire that never goes out. This is your awakening. This is your power. And this is where transformation truly begins.